On today's Join Us in France, the Opéra Garnier in Paris. This is Join Us in France, episode 127. Hello, I'm Annie, and I'm here to tell you about my travels and discovery of France, and also to interview listeners who visit France and have great tips to share from their own trips to France. I love France. I was born and raised here. I live here, but in my early 20s, I left to go live in the UK for 2 years and then in the US for 18 years. So when I came back, I had to rediscover my own country, and it's been such a wonderful time. I want to help you understand France better because I, like you, have a passion for travel done right. For show notes and links on this episode, and especially if we say some words that you don't quite catch, go to joinusinfrance.com/127. You will also find lots of links on your podcasting app, and you can click on them and it'll take you straight to what you need. On today's episode, I bring you my conversation with my friend Brenda about the Opéra Garnier. I'm not sure how to say that. If I didn't know how to speak French, how would I say it? Opéra Garnier, maybe? Anyway, we visited it together and we both absolutely loved it. I would definitely put it on anybody's list of things to see in Paris, even if you're only there for a short time. I will also say, and this is probably a little bit heretical, but if you don't have that much time, but you would like to see something grand like Versailles, don't make the trek to Versailles. It's better known, but Opéra Garnier is just that same type of grand place. It's really easy to get to also. It's also full of history, and I think it's better for a first-time visitor to Paris. And now, because I've visited it, I'm on the lookout for a good opportunity to go see a performance at the Palais Garnier. It was the home for the Paris Opera for a long time, and I love opera. But now it's been the home of the Paris Ballet instead. And, you know, the ballet, I don't love it as much, and it's pretty expensive. So every time I go to Paris, I look at the schedule and I'm like, 135 euros minimum. Oof, that's expensive. And I don't even know anything about this piece or whatever. Anyway, next time I go to Paris is going to be late November, and I'm going to miss this wonderful opportunity. The school of ballet is putting on a show for a few days, and that's really inexpensive. It's 35 euros or something. But if I want to go, I'm going to have to extend my stay in Paris. So we'll see what wins. My desire to go see a performance at the Opéra Garnier, or my desire to get home. We'll see. I'll let you know. But before I go on to the Opéra Garnier, I want to thank the 9 new listeners who signed up to support me on Patreon this week. So let me tell you who they are. Elizabeth Houston increased her donation to $50 a month because she's going to get 2 half-hour private French tutoring with me. Elizabeth, we will set the dates for our first lessons very, very soon. The new donors this week are, and forgive me if I don't know how to say your name, I'm going to try my best, John Fu, Andrea Dubrovin, Christine Hegarty, Tammy Medeiros. Looks Spanish to me, but I'm not sure if I should say it that way. We'll see. Maybe you'll tell me someday. William Ciardello, and this one looks Italian. Anna Nichols and Natalia Semchenko. Thank you very much. And also Lacey Ambergy set up a recurring $5 donation via the Tip Your Guide button on the website. She's the first person to ever do that. So thank you to all of you. And I also got a late donation as I record this intro of a person who donated with the Tip Your Guide button, but she didn't want to be named. So thank you, Anonymous. You are all very much appreciated. Just a quick word about our upcoming tours in Paris. Elise and I spent most of one wonderful day planning the tour, and we're not quite ready to make the announcement, but we are getting really close. When we're ready, you'll be the first to know, so hang in there. Now let's talk about one of Paris's most gorgeous buildings, the Opéra Garnier. This is Brenda, my good friend from California. We have known each other since we were very young. We were in college together, and we've been friends ever since, mostly because Brenda is very good at keeping in touch, and I'm not, but she pursued me. She wrote me postcards and said, "Hello, are you dead or alive?"
Annie's using the nice word for stalk. I stalked her.
No, it's true. I've had so many friends tell me, "You're really bad at this keeping in touch. You're really terrible at it." And it's just because I get excited about projects and then nothing else matters. My husband will tell you the same thing. Like, I can ignore him for a whole month just because I'm interested in something else. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, I guess. But today we are going to talk about the Opéra Garnier, a lovely, lovely place. And this opera has come up in the show a few times. We even had a tour guide on a few episodes. That was episode 53, so that was a long time ago. Her name was Jessica Terrier, and she does tours in the Opéra Garnier. And I have walked past it so many times. You can't miss it. It's so striking. And I never went in. And this time, Brenda and her husband made a reservation, and they said, "Would you like to join us?" And I thought, well, why not? Might as well. This is one of the best things anybody's ever roped me into. This was really, really good. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You don't realize how nice it really is. I'm really, really recommending that you don't skip this one. Even if you're only in Paris for a few days, I don't know. What do you think? If you're only in Paris for like 5 days, do you think it's good enough to go to Opéra Garnier?
I do. I absolutely do. It was a beautiful tour. I've been to, and this was my 4th or 5th time in Paris, and I've only ever driven by the building like you did and admired it and went, "Oh, beautiful, Phantom of the Opera," that sort of type of thing. But this time, when my husband and I went, we had this rare opportunity to be able to go to Paris without our kids, and I kind of wanted it to be, since this is his 3rd time back to Paris and my 5th time, and I'd seen all the major attractions, and so I told him, if we're going back to Paris, I want to see some things I haven't seen before. I want to try and avoid big tourist trap attractions. I mean, they're wonderful to see if it's your first time. Of course, go see those. But I kind of wanted to concentrate, and I didn't want to stand in the lines at the Notre Dame, or Eiffel Tower. So I told him, I said, I want to go, and this is how it all started. I said, I want to go see an opera or a performance in l'Opéra Garnier.
Right.
And he goes, "That sounds like a great idea."
Right.
And so he started looking it up. And of course, we found out that the opera is dark during the summer, especially July and August.
Yep.
Because it's their season's over. And so that was a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, the first performances are probably not until October or maybe even November. I don't know. I haven't looked, but it's, it's...
Right. So this is the period of time where they're in fact, when you and I were there, there was some construction going on. They were repairing or refurbishing something, deeper into the building.
Well, sure.
This is their time that they're improving it or just repairing the things that are damaged, replacing carpet, that type of thing.
Right. And, there are a lot of places where typically I don't love following a tour guide around because I have a very short attention span, and so I just wander off and I don't listen to them. But this one is really good because, well, first of all, the lady who did it, and her name was Rita de Chloe, and I'm going to try and get her on the show. I haven't, I got her email address, but I haven't reached out to her yet. But she was really good, I thought. She was well worth the effort to listen to somebody for an hour, and probably was longer than an hour. And the good thing is that they have this system where she has a microphone and you have something in your ear. I don't know what you call it. Yeah, it's not really a headset. It's something just in your ear.
Oh yeah, it just kind of clips to your ear.
Yeah,
it's weird.
And you can hear her perfectly well, and you don't have to be standing, super close, and there's no shouting going on in there. It was really a pleasant experience. Now, I'm sure that they have self-guided tours. As a matter of fact, I know they do because I saw some people that had a little tape recorder looking thing and they were walking around. If you enjoy those, that would be better than nothing. But I think you really need to have a tour of some kind in there to get the full thing. For one thing, if you're not on a guided tour, you don't get to go in and see the ceiling, the paint. Who did it?
Yeah, the main.
Yeah,
the main
hall
chamber. The main hall where everyone sits to watch the performance. We got to sit down there. She did a whole thing on the ceiling, like you were saying, with Marc Chagall.
Chagall, there you go. That's the name I was looking for. Ay. We're getting old, Brenda. This is a problem. I forget names. Anyway, so that Chagall ceiling is so awesome.
Amazing.
And luckily, I had my good zoom lens, and so I took a lot of pictures. So I'll put pictures on the website so you can see it up close. It was just fabulous. I mean, just amazing. So this
what was amazing too.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that the tour guide explained the story behind why he was commissioned, how he was commissioned. The story of him deciding to do it. How he did it, the design, the specifics of why he designed it the way he did. It was all very, very interesting. She gave a lot of great artistic detail there.
Yep. And she obviously had a great appreciation for the work, which is, not always the case. As in our last talk about the Canal Saint-Martin. Some of the guides are so bored with it. This one was not like that. And so, and she was very good with children too. She was involving the children, and she did her tour without insulting your intelligence. Now, the way she starts out the tour with the kids, I thought, she's going to get annoying. But not at all. She wasn't annoying at all. Eventually, of course she engaged the children first, but then she was just as good at engaging the adults. So that was really good. All right, just a tiny bit of background on this opera house. It's in the 9th arrondissement on Place de l'Opéra. The metro stop is also called Opera. So this is one of the few instances where French people did not complicate things unnecessarily. and for the longest time, this was called the Paris Opera, l'Opéra de Paris. But then they built a new opera on Place de la Bastille. And so that one is now Opéra Bastille, and the one in Paris is Opéra Garnier. And that's named after the main architect. But you have to know that they don't put on a lot of operas at Opéra Garnier anymore. This is now the home of the Paris Ballet, and it's a magnificent home. Back then, people went to the opera very frequently when they built this. So this is like 1860s. As a matter of fact, there was an attempt on Napoleon's life while he was leaving the opera. And so he told the designer, I want to make sure that it's really safe and easy for me to get in and out of the opera quickly. And that was one of the requirements that they had. Paris in the 1860s was in the middle of the Haussmann era, and there was a big competition put on to build a new opera house, and Charles Garnier was pronounced the winner of that competition. He was only 35, and there were 171 architects who submitted projects. So his win was a big surprise because he was very young and very untested. But they loved his drawings and his ideas so much that even though he hadn't built anything big yet, they gave him the job. And he was truly a genius. I mean, when you go in there and you see it, you're like, wow, this building fits its purpose so well. And he brought together both the technical and artistic aspects of it. It's just absolutely fabulous. Now, Garnier had to make do with a less than desirable plot of land. The area is diamond-shaped, and it's not even symmetrical. He made several requests so that the plot of land would be modified a little bit, but Haussmann, who was in charge of drawing the big lines and all that, he did not grant him any of his requests, because after all, this was a young architect that nobody gave a hoot about, and so he was like, nope, I'm not doing that, so go home and just do whatever you can. Of course, Garnier didn't do anything himself. He was surrounded by other architects, artists, designers, painters, sculptors. You know, he had the best of every craft. He ran into some technical problems. For instance, the foundation, the water tables are high, so they have to have pumps, even to this day, that pump out water out of the basement. And it took 15 years to build the whole thing. And a really cute little thing is that they hid the facade that whole time. So while it was being built, Parisians saw nothing. It was a complete surprise to the people of Paris. And when they unveiled it, everybody was like, wow, you know, the way we feel today. That was brilliant, I think. That was really good. And this building has become the archetype for this style of the time, for the 1875 kind of era. The building was completed in 1875. They had to slow down the construction at time because of lack of funding, because of wars, because Napoleon was always getting in trouble with this person or that person. But what hurried it up is that in 1873, a fire destroyed much of the operating opera house in Paris. I don't even know where that was because it was so unremarkable. But now they didn't have an opera house anymore. And like I said, people went to the opera a lot. And so they hurried up and finished the Opéra Garnier. And when you inaugurate a new opera, of course, you commission new pieces to have a world premiere at your new opera. All of them totally forgotten, except for the William Tell by Rossini. And you've probably heard the charge. I'll put a bit of it at the end of the episode, so to just remind you. But that's a piece everybody's heard because it's like pop music of classical. And in those days, the opera house was lit by candlelight. And this one was particularly well lit. And so people brought their score to the opera during the performance, and they could actually read it. And so they could notice errors in the performance. But, I mean, that's just crazy because today they dimmed the light so much that you couldn't read a score if you had it with you. And only a professional musician with like a giant memory for score could remember, they went off here. It wasn't quite like that, But back then, they could hear it. They could read it. It was weird. It's really hard to describe, how truly amazing this place is. But they really brought together the best of everything. I don't know. What impression did it give you, Brenda?
It was amazing. Just the whole pride of architecture, I mean, I don't think there was a spot inside that building that isn't somehow ornate. Just everything, even at the very beginning, she was talking about, our tour guide was talking about how the building itself was built like a crescendo, where you start out very faint and you build up to this. And she was pointing that out in terms of color, and how when you first enter the outside of the opera house and from the outside as you go in, the color gets more and more bold. But even when you're in the very entrance parts, except for a certain passage that was left purposely bland and plain, and there's a story behind that I don't know if you want to share it or if you want me to share it. But
go ahead.
Well, I'll talk about that in just a minute. But except for that one part, even the parts that are very faint in color are very ornate and very detailed as far as the decor, the statuary, the balustrades on the staircases. Just a really beautiful building.
And you have the mythology brought into it. You have all the things that you would expect in an opera house repeated. So you have patterns that repeat in just the right place, just like you do in an opera. That's part of the art of the opera, is to repeat the theme, just at the right time. And it's just really, really good. And when you walk in, you go from this kind of lowish ceiling. I mean, it's not super low ceiling, but it's probably, 16-foot ceiling. And then you get into the big area with the grand staircase, and that's like 50 foot. It's so ornate, and and your eye is drawn to the top. It's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous.
Right. And then as you proceed deeper into the building, the colors get more vivid and bold, and kind of draw you in towards the main hall. It's really lovely. And that staircase is that's the first big wow moment you have. And a little bit back to the motifs you're talking about, the repeated motifs. It's true that the building, you can tell that the person who designed the building had a great understanding of how music works and how an opera or that art form works. And a lot of mythology, a lot of Apollo as the god of music, a lot of homage to him. Lyres everywhere, which is his symbol, that the ancient lyre. Which was the musical instrument of Apollo. And anyways, you see a lot of this repeated everywhere and in different ways.
It's
very lovely.
And I've posted a couple of pictures to family and friends on Facebook, and one said, "Oh, it's overdone." And fair enough, it's overdone, but there's overdone, and then there's well done overdone. Like this is like overdone, sure, but it's hard to find fault because it's so pleasant to look at. It just makes you walk in there and you want to walk up straight, and you want to put on your my daughter and her friends started dancing like ballerinas, and that's the feeling. It kind of elevates to the finer arts. Even if you don't have training in these finer arts, you're just like, wow, this is awesome.
It's very inspiring. I have to say, right? It's very inspiring, even if it is overdone. So is an opera. When you think about it, an opera is just a magnified life experience. Made this into this art form.
Yes, in the opera, you want to use everything at your disposal to show off what the instruments can do. That's what you do. I mean, in a classic opera, I guess. I'm sure there's modern operas that don't operate like that, but but that's the idea of most of them, and that's the idea of the building, is to show off everything you can do if you have amazing craftspeople at your disposal. It's just a great example of that.
I completely agree.
Yeah. And today, so they did move the opera to the Opéra Bastille, and that one you can also visit, but it's not near as impressive to look at. I haven't seen the inside, but the outside is a very modern building. It's completely different than the Opéra Garnier, and the only reason why they moved the opera house is the opera company, is because nowadays the building had become a little bit too narrow to put on modern operas, because opera sets are so intricate that they go around the world and they are being rented and they are being reused by many companies. But you need the space, and you need the machinery to be able to use those very large sets. So they start at the Met, and then they're going to go to the opera in Tokyo, and maybe then in Australia, and then Paris, etc. And if you want to be able to use those sets, you have to have an opera house that's up to today's standard, and it's changed some. But there was nothing wrong with the Opéra Garnier to begin with. It's just that it couldn't receive those fancy sets. And also the ballet company needed a nice place to be, and they certainly found one of the nicer ones in the world. So, yeah. And you were going to mention the story about the tunnel, the access?
Right. So one of the really interesting things about the guided tour that we had was that she brought a lot of the history into it, not just the history behind the design, as far as where he drew inspiration for the design, but also what was going on in the world while the opera house was being built politically, and in France especially, because this was commissioned during the time of Napoleon III, and done under his direction. And as you already detailed, he did want his own private access.
Yeah.
And it was originally designed to be very ornate and beautiful. Mm-hmm. But during the construction, while the building was being constructed, Napoleon III fell out of power and was replaced by was it the Third Republic? Annie, I can't remember my French history.
No, c'est la deuxième. It's the Second Republic, I think, but I'm not. I think c'est l'Empire. And then was
C'était le Deuxième Empire.
Le Second Empire. Yes, that's right. But then what followed that? I don't remember.
I don't know if it was the Second or Third Republic. As she pointed out, and I thought she did a great. She made a great, really succinct, brief explanation of the mess that French politics was during the 1800s. Because they, one minute they had an emperor, then they had a king again, then they went back to a republic. It was a big mess. I'm pretty sure it was a Third Republic, Annie, because the First Republic being after the Revolution, and then there was another one. Yeah. Then there was another one right after they got rid of the king.
You're probably right.
I don't know. I could be very wrong. Anyways, we could look it up.
Yes.
That's what Google's for.
I will look it up, and I will put it on the show notes. So it's correct on the show notes. Just don't believe everything I say, because sometimes I say stuff and it's not quite.
Yeah. Annie and I both studied in college, and we did study French history.
Yes, a lot.
Was a long time ago.
And then we forgot it as soon as we could.
Yes. Right. Anyway, whatever republic it was rose to power after Napoleon III. And of course, having an emperor there, anything associated with the emperor was bad. And once the building was opened, the poor designer kind of got the short end of the stick because he'd been hired by the emperor.
Yeah.
And so the things happened like at the grand opening, he wasn't even invited.
Right, right.
The designer of the architect wasn't even invited.
Yeah.
To the opening and things like that. But that
rude.
special entrance that had been designed to be really beautiful and ornate for Napoleon III was left extremely stripped. I mean, not even, no color, no decor, nothing. It was very, very bare. So you see this very, very bare stone staircase going up to this special entrance that was designed because they yanked the funding for it. So
We're
of course,
Republicans, we don't pour money into the emperor's entrance.
Right. So that is the story behind the very stripped staircase in l'Opéra Garnier and how the poor architect kind of got caught in the middle of politics.
But it's just one of them. The rest of them are just stunning. So definitely go. When I can get if and when I can get this tour guide on, she will give you more details because that's what she does every day. But it's an awesome place. Do not skip it. Don't just go in front and don't go in because that's a sin.
Yes. And my favorite part, I have to say, my favorite part was the gathering hall, or what was it called? The place where the men all went to be seen in between acts.
Yeah, the grand ball area. I don't know what they call it. Yes. It's like a side gallery.
Yes, and it was to me it was as gorgeous as the Salon des Glaces in Versailles.
I think it was more beautiful than that. It's newer too. Exactly. I mean.
Yes, it struck me as very, very, it was very ornate, very gorgeous. And I guess it was, and women weren't allowed to go in there at first. And then one of the queens of Spain came in and kind of was a rebel. And
what's that all about? Let me in.
Right.
There's always got to be some woman who does this,
Right.
So thank you, Queen of Spain.
So, but what was interesting too, what was really interesting about this tour guide was that she brought in a lot of this personal stories that make a story of a building like this very interesting.
Yeah, because it took years to plan, years to build. It's a real living place. We didn't see a performance there, but I would pay good money. I don't even like the ballet that much. I would much rather see an opera than a ballet, generally speaking. But I would go to the ballet for that. Just to see it in action, to hear it in action. Because it's supposed to be one of the nicest sounding halls in the world. And I'm sure that's correct because it just looks right. It just looks cozy. It's huge. But it looks cozy. It's like
you're right.
And this Chagall
you're right. It
ceiling.
doesn't. Yes, and it looks bigger. It is bigger than it looks when you're sitting. And we were sitting in the bottom tier of the seats.
Yes.
And looking up at that ceiling, and I'm looking around, going, it seems so much bigger, and it is a big, big room.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like you were saying, that cozy feel about it. It just, you felt.
Yeah.
Comfortable.
And the seats are comfortable and it's all very nice. And of course, the tour guide went into all the intricacies of what happened during the opera because people didn't just go to the opera to listen to music. There was a lot of hanky-panky going on, and they have actually built-in screens so you could, do things in private, kind of.
Right, in the side, what's booths? I don't know what they're called.
Les balcons. Yeah. So
very interesting.
You show up, and some guy comes into your booth, and then you pull up the thing, and then you say, "Oh, it was all totally private. Nobody knew what was going on." Like, oh, please.
Yeah, I think they could figure it out.
Anyway, all sorts of things went on in the opera, and that's why the opera is so long, because you need time to do all this.
Right.
But nowadays, we don't do, I don't know. I suppose we don't do that. What do I know? But it was just, yeah, you got to see it. Just go. Just take my word for it.
One thing I would have loved, and if I ever go back, I'd like to see if there is a tour of some of the places. I'd love to see parts that people don't normally get to, like the public parts, the parts that aren't public, like the practice room. She was pointing out that above, when we were looking at the Chagall ceiling, she was saying above that are ballet practice rooms.
Yep.
And I would love to see one of those rooms. Yeah, or even go down below. She was pointing out, there's the mythical stuff. Lake. It's not really a lake. That's what she said. It's actually, but it is. There are those pumps and the pools that are used to keep the foundation stable.
Yep.
I would love to see that type of thing, and
And of course, there's the Phantom of the Opera.
Right, and I know from my understanding that story started with a legend that I think it was like kind of a theater legend about there being a phantom. Like whenever anything weird went on, they say, "Oh, it was the Phantom" or whatever.
Yep.
And then the story was written as a novel and so on.
Yeah, some novelist made something of it, and then now people go there and want to see the Phantom. Well,
yeah, they actually think it's a real story.
Just like they want to see the Hunchback at Notre Dame. He's not there either,
Right.
So it's just, but it's. I really think that if you miss that, you're missing out on something great, something that makes Paris really special.
Yes, I agree.
Yep.
It's a very unique building. It's very gorgeous. And someday I will go back to Paris and see a performance there. But I was glad that when my husband looked up, when I originally told him I want to see a performance in l'Opéra, and he said, "Oh, there's nothing there. It's dark. They're doing tours, though." And I said, "Oh, let's do that instead." And that ended up being a great experience.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Brenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank my husband.
Okay. Thank you, Brenda's husband. You guys are awesome. All right.
Well, so are you.
I think we're going to call it good for this topic. I'm sure there's much more to say about this. You can go back and listen to episode 53, in which she talks some more about the history of this building, and hopefully we can get his tour guide also on. And Elise has also said that Opéra Garnier is her favorite place to take people to, because of course she's an official guide, so not everybody can guide a tour in the Opéra Garnier, but if you're an official guide and you have the credentials, which she does, she can, do tours in there, and it's just, you got to do that at least once before you die, and probably more than once. I don't know. I might go back because that was cool.
Yep.
All right, Brenda, thank you so much. I'll have you back on. I'll have you back on soon because we had more Paris adventures that we have to share with people.
Yes, that we can talk about in public.
That's right. We're only mentioning those. Nothing else. All right, Brenda.
Annie.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. If you are subscribed to the website or subscribed to the newsletter, it's the same thing. Within a few days of this episode releasing, and it's October 30th, 2016 today, you will get the weekly newsletter. And the recipe of the week this time is la tarte à la ratatouille, or ratatouille tart. I always make too much food. I don't know about you, but I always make too much food, especially vegetables for some reason. I always think people are going to eat it all, and they don't. So I'm always looking for good ways to make good use of my leftovers. And it turns out that making a ratatouille tart is a great way to use your leftovers. And it's very tasty, and it makes for a wonderful lunch for a couple days after that. To get my recipe, make sure your copy of the newsletter does not end up in your email trash can. And if you want to look for it, it'll come from Annie@joinusinfrance.com. All right, let me know how you like the ratatouille tart. Hi guys, it's Annie again. When you go to joinusinfrance.com, and I hope you do, you will see two important sidebars. The one on the left is there to help you find the information you need. Episodes are categorized by region, for instance, Normandy, Southwest, Paris, Alsace, whatever, but also by show type. There's a category for trip reports, another for transportation, another for food and wine, museums, etc. So if you have an idea what you're looking for but you can't remember the details, you can narrow it down by using the sidebar on the left that says episodes by categories. The sidebar on the right is where you can shop for hotels, car rentals, flights, and earn the show a commission. This is no different than what TripAdvisor does. If you read TripAdvisor reviews and you book a hotel, they get a commission. You pay the same price for that hotel regardless. Well, it's the same for joinusinfrance.com. If you listen to the show and enjoy it, when you are ready to book, go to joinusinfrance.com first, click on those banners on the right of the website, and shop around. This episode is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives International License.